to Something for the Turbo, the new weekly podcast brought to you by Unfound, the global platform for the travel-loving cyclist. Welcome to the show. Today's episode is supported by Alp Cycles for all your alpine cycling experiences. So we've had a couple of days off to recharge the batteries, but don't worry, we haven't been lazy. We've actually lined up some incredible guests for you over the next few weeks, including 3 fantastic episodes next week and a superb conversation today as well. So we hope you're enjoying the show. Please do subscribe if you haven't yet. And if you really fancy it, why don't you leave a review? That would be hugely appreciated. And make sure you're telling all your cycling mates or anyone you've ever met who's ridden a bike. We really appreciate you spreading the word. So today I'm delighted to be joined by renowned cycling photographer Alex Duffill. At just 23 years old, Alex has already grabbed the attention of some of the world's biggest cycling brands, has worked with some of the world's biggest cycling publications, including Cyclist Magazine and Rouleur, and has also worked with some pro cycling teams. He's covered races around the world, and we're very excited to see where his journey takes him over the next couple of years. But without further ado, let me bring you Alex. Alex, thanks for joining us. How are you getting on?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks, Jules. How are you?
Yeah, surviving. It was good to hear that you were back on a shoot yesterday. It must have been quite a tough few months for yourself with lockdown.
Yeah, it's obviously been very quiet whilst we get everything out of the way. But no, it's starting to pick up again, which is nice, and people are starting to learn how to work with it, which I think is important.
Good. So good to be back working. Bit of a shock to the system?
Yeah, you suddenly feel a bit rusty after 5 months off almost, but we've still been taking pictures and still riding bikes, so it's not too bad.
That's what it's all about. Yeah. Well, I introduced you prior to you joining us, and as the man that sells us wonderful destinations and cycling experiences, as well as lovely kit from some of the work you've done. But should we go back to the beginning and talk about your journey into cycling? Because you've got a bit of a family history there, haven't you?
Yeah. It's one that I've grown up in. I didn't really have a chance not to almost be involved in it. My dad's always been involved in cycling through different roles in marketing for like Peugeot and Rally, and has always sort of been involved in cyclocross.
Okay.
And then back in 2014, him and Simon Burney put on the Milton Keynes Cyclocross World Cup, which was pretty much the first race I went to. I went along a little, what would I have been, 17, 16, with a camera, and just that was the first race that I photographed. I ended up photographing friends that a couple of years later I didn't realise, in Gabby and Jeremy Durran.
Oh, brilliant! So that was your first race. That was 2014. So I was gonna say,
Yeah.
Did you grow up during the Peugeot and Rally days with your dad? But obviously you're a bit younger than me. It shows my age.
I'm only 23 now, which is just kind of odd. I always forget.
Yeah. Okay, so that's no, that explains it. I was thinking of the Peugeot days, sort of, because I would have been a kid during those days. So you obviously grew up though with your dad telling stories of those days. I bet he's got some great tales and had some amazing travels and experiences. Has he always been involved with cycling? He's always that's been his thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, he was involved in sort of the race side of it, and then the bike side of like just trying to shift as many bikes as possible, pretty much. And when Peugeot were properly bringing their bikes to the UK market, he was involved in that. And so he's got all the stories about like him and his old bosses driving around Paris and stuff, and yeah, just really, really fun stories to find out. And then we'll go to a pretty niche race like the Three Peaks, and we'll bump into Nick Craig, and they'll just be catching up like, oh, do you remember when this happened? Do you remember when that happened? It's just, it's kind of surreal.
So you obviously grew up riding bikes. I think you mentioned offline, not racing, but just loving, obviously from a cycling family. When did your interest in photography start? Is that something that you've always had an eye for? Or obviously your dad's in marketing, so obviously got that sort of artistic or creative background there in the DNA.
Yeah, it was weird. It was sort of at school, I think, like, you know, when you had to pick options at GCSE, and one of the ones I picked was like media studies. I think that was the first time I like properly picked up a camera, and I was like, this is quite fun. And from there I like started to get into it, and it was more the filming side that I like started to learn. So I started to study film studies at A level, and then I picked up photography from that, just to complement them both. Then sort of went to university at the University of Gloucestershire for 3 years, and I can't say anything bad about it. They're all incredible. Like, I still regularly catch up with my lecturers now, even though I've been out for 2 years now. And they're just, Trudy and Matt are just always helping and like always keen to try and make me think differently. And that's something I learned whilst I was there. And I just learned to question why I'm doing everything. And I can understand why they just want another AOP course of the year. Like, it was just such an incredible time.
And that's interesting. As a photographer, and obviously you do a lot of the moving image stuff as well, do you feel that you're developing, because you have kind of a unique style, and I've always wondered, I think as a consumer, you tend to just see the end product and probably don't appreciate what goes in, you know, to create that image or to create that atmosphere. Talk us through how you develop a sort of unique style around your work.
Yeah, I think it's definitely taken a lot of pictures. Like there's people that have been doing it longer than I've been alive, and they've definitely got a style. And I think I'm starting to sort of understand what I like and what I necessarily don't like. It's just always sort of, I think the style is something that's ever evolving as well.
Yeah.
Especially in cycling, it can get quite easy to get into the same shots each time. So that's why I think...
Yeah, that's quite hard, right? Because you get the classic images that you see, so you're always trying to think of something different. But I think with some of your work, and what we'll do is, how does this work? Can we put your website in the show notes? And obviously, if you can give us some examples. I think you've got a lot of your client work on your website as well. But you have a real distinct way of sort of capturing not only the sort of image but the atmosphere, or sort of, it's kind of escapism. I suppose it's kind of a bit like art, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely like, it's so much fun. That's the only way I can describe it. Like, it's just so much fun when you can go to these races and you can just almost tell your story of what's going on. And that's where it's sort of, you get a bit of a line where some people are very photojournalistic and everything has to be exactly like what's happening and not stylized at all. Whereas I think I try and play on both of them a little bit. I try and stylize some documentary stuff that's going on.
So for the people that don't know your work so intimately, can you give everyone a bit of an overview about some of the people you've worked with, some of the work, what have you done, and how?
Yeah, so I've been super fortunate that I got to work with Rapha quite a few years ago when Harry Downey sent me an email, and he asked to come down, and didn't realise I was at university at the time, and I was just in my second year, and he just saw my work and wanted to come down for a chat. So I sat down and showed him my portfolio on my laptop, because at that point we didn't even have a printed folio, and I was just showing him some pictures, and they suddenly started booking me on shoots for stuff in the UK. And then I was fortunate enough in 2018 to do the ATAP and one of the RCC summits, which was just like bonkers to me, because it was like way over my head. I was just like living on cloud nine whilst at university.
Good times.
I'm super fortunate that both Rouleur magazine and Cyclist magazine have booked me over the years. And
so they picked you up. I mean, because going back a bit, like Rapha are kind of the original brand that really brought the experience, or tried to capture the whole experience side of cycling through photography and imagery, didn't they? And obviously they saw something in your work, and off the back of that's how it started. So it started with Rapha, then obviously Cyclist Magazine and Rouleur. What have you done with those guys?
So Rouleur, I ended up doing my work experience with when I was in second year. I sent Ian an email, and he sort of recognised me from my dad, because they did a piece that Benedict Campbell shot at the Milton Keynes World Cup, and so he sort of was like, oh, okay, that sort of puts two and two together. So I came down, and I was in the office for a day just going through issue 18.3. I've got it in front of me. And I helped, and I was just learning how a magazine works. And then later on that week, they were doing, I don't know if it was even called Desire then, but Benedict was shooting a whole load of bikes to go in the magazine, and they invited me along to assist him, which was like incredible. And he was such a nice guy, and just the photos he produced at the end, I was like blown away by. And then like a year later, we had our degree show in London. So at the end of our university course, they invite you down to London. You have to put on a degree show for a week. And that's sort of supposed to be where you properly like interact with the industry. And Cyclist Magazine, I sent Pete Stewart an email first, and instantly got a reply saying, I'd love to come, forwarding it on to Pete Muir and Rob Milton, who are the art director and editor. And I didn't realise at the time, but they were 100 metres down the road.
No way.
And so Rob was like, I'm free this afternoon. Have you got a portfolio with you, and can I come and see it? There was a nice coffee shop around the corner, and we sat down for what was supposed to be a 10-minute meeting, and we just chatted away for an hour about everything from bikes to photography to, it was just incredible. And then from that, Pete Muir, the editor, said, okay, we're thinking of running this classic climbs feature with Henry Catchpole. Do you fancy doing it? Like, you'll go away for a week, you two will drive down and just take some photos on each of the climbs.
Amazing. And that's how that became around. I love we had Stu Bowers on last week. I don't know if you caught that one, but I was saying to him, I just love the imagery with Cyclist Magazine. They seem to capture particularly the travel element so well, and obviously your work's part of that. And just from an artistically, it's just a lovely publication in terms of how it feels and looks, and it's good to hear.
That's always amazing to hear, right?
Yeah. So what bits have you done for them? What are the main features? You've obviously done their big climbs.
So we've done, I think, over 16. I want to say 16 months worth of classic climbs.
Wow.
Oddly, probably I think the first one that went out, Trecime, was special because the climb's the most beautiful climb in the world, and like everything about it just seemed to fit perfectly. Like, we managed to, I think we did the Mortarolo in the morning, then drove over to it, had a pizza, and the sun was just starting to come down. And it was just like out of this world gorgeous. Yeah. I did the Romania big rides for them with Felix Lowe. And that was like, once again, that was incredible. Like, it just completely opens your eyes to riding in just a different place that's not necessarily as built up, but everyone's so friendly. And the roads around there, like the Transfer were gorgeous.
Really?
And I can understand why like people say it's the best driving road in the world.
Yeah, that Top Gear made that famous, didn't they? Is that that's that road? Yeah,
it's the one that's got all the switchbacks, and then there's a cable car going to the top. But we managed to hit it quite lucky because apparently on a weekend it's nose to tail the whole way up with cars.
Really?
So the best driving road in the world just becomes a car park.
And obviously you've done a lot of work with cyclists. What else have you been up to?
Yeah, so I've been working with a brand that's just relaunching itself called NVPA, or it used to be Neon Velo, who had the race team that I was with for, I think, a year, and then I did the cyclocross campaign with them, which was where I met two lifelong friends in Gabby and Jeremy Doran. And that was initially from Ian at Rouleur. He said after I did my work experience that he had a team contact them knowing if they had any photographers, and Marshall Capel recommended me as well, which was he worked with Neon Velo a couple of years ago in the States, and once again a super nice guy who just wanted to help out as much as he could. I think I bumped into him in a lift at Gareth Winter and Johnny Hines had like an exhibition a few years ago. And I bumped into him and was just like, hey Marshall, really like your work. And ever since then he just was just incredible, and just always like checked up, asked how I was getting on, like if he could help in any way. It was just amazing. It's amazing because you think of the photography industry as being quite, not necessarily competitive, but in some aspects. And then people like Benedict and Marshall and Sean Hardy and Joe Harper just always tried to help me out, because I think they just see that I'm still quite young and it could be easy for me to be put off.
And talking through it, like it's obviously when you went to uni or even in sixth form, you was looking at cycling particularly as being your sort of focal area, and you could sort of carve out a niche there. And how big is the photography world within cycling? Are there many of you? Or is it still quite small and niche, or how does it work?
So back in second year of uni, my lecturer Matt Murray, we were doing one of the modules where we had to start specialising, and like I was sat there for like a good amount of time thinking like, do I want to do like sports photography, or do I want to do like portraiture or like fashion or something? And it was just like just photograph what you enjoy, and it shouldn't be a process of thinking about what you want your job to be. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to photograph bikes then. And we just sat down and laughed and just said it's just going to be bikes for a while. And then went down to Belgium to photograph one of the Koppenberg cross races, and came back and I shot not necessarily the racing, but the people that go to it, and was just doing
some interesting characters going to watch the cross.
Yeah, people drinking a bit too early in the day for my liking, but it's cross and everyone loves it and everyone's super friendly. And I came back and I showed him, and I was like, this is what goes on. This is bike racing, but not necessarily showing the racing. And he was like, you got this. Like, why don't you just carry on doing this? And from then on, I just started focusing and realized actually it wasn't as bad as I thought, because I was just enjoying it. And I just love going to bike races, talking about bikes. It's just been involved with me.
And that passion comes through in your work, I think. And obviously, so you obviously do the magazine side, and you've worked with brands. You mentioned Rapha and Pasnormal Studio.
Yeah,
Panamal, and racing as well. You capture races as well. That's something that you've been doing as well.
Yeah. So the racing side of the stuff is, I just started mainly basing myself in the UK, and I was with the Neon Velo team for a whole race season, which was like my first insight into actually being with a team. And then I was lucky enough to go and do the whole cross season with them. Yeah. So we did everything from the 2 America World Cups through to Denmark, Germany. Yeah, and that was when Matthew and Wout were battling each other. Wout had a bit of an off start to the year, but then like Matthew would just ride off, and it would just sort of be a bit unfair. So it was always impressive. Like regardless of the weather, he would just be out the front, and it was just it was gorgeous to watch.
Supreme athlete, isn't he? That firsthand in the flesh is probably even more remarkable, right? I mean, we try and get it from TV, but when you're there, is it just what's it like?
Some of the banks and stuff that he's just going up effortlessly. And it's like, I'm thinking, but I'm struggling to walk up it, and you're just riding up it casually. And everyone just sort of turns around and looks at each other like, this can't be happening. Yeah. It just makes it look so different and beautiful.
So grateful. Yeah.
But I've been lucky enough to work with people like Tom Pidcock when they're out training, and just seeing them go backwards and forwards on sand at their training camps. It's like the amount of effort they put in just to get everything perfect on race days is incredible to watch.
Yeah, so you probably get a great insight, working with teams and obviously working with great athletes like Tom, seeing their sort of non-race training stuff. You probably get a great insight into what it's like to be a pro, and how hard they have to work to get the results they get.
Yeah, massively. And like when people say how much they actually have to rest after and stuff, and it's they basically don't want to walk anywhere after they've done their training, or like coming up to a race, they will try and make it as little as possible just to completely be fresh for race day.
Mad, isn't it? Absolutely mad.
But when they get the results, everything's worth it. So
yeah. And in terms of equipment and stuff, what do you use different equipment for studio work and when you're out racing, and what are your sort of cameras and equipment of choice at the moment?
Yeah, so I made the plunge from Canon to Sony about 2 years ago now, and I've been using the Sony cameras ever since, and I've got a couple of them just for mixing photo and video work. And I've tried to pack everything as small as I can so I can fit it in a bag, so if I need to jump in and out of a car, I can easily do it, because I'd love to have all the equipment in the world with me, but if I can't get to it quickly, I might have missed something. And especially on the shoots with Henry for Cyclist, I had to drive as well as shooting, so I had to try and make everything as like easy to grab as possible.
Yes, you've got to be pretty spontaneous, right? You capture that moment. You might just see something in your rear view mirror, and you're like, "That's it. That's the shot. I've got to get it."
Pretty much. Yeah. Just parking the car on the side of the road with the hazards on, trying to jump out quickly.
Yeah.
No, it's been a lot of fun over the years. I'm super fortunate to be able to do it at such a young age, where I get to see the world and get to take all these pictures.
Yeah, absolutely. And the travel bit's amazing. What was on the cards for you pre the world grinding to a halt? Where was work taking you this year?
It was going to be the first year I get to properly go to World Tour races. So I was booked for Flanders and Roubaix.
Okay.
And that was going to be pretty much, I was going to be with the teams, and it was going to be, everything was looking up pretty much. And then, March came. I think Joe and I just got back from the Panama trip in Mallorca that we had to cut short. And it was just like, okay, everything's starting to stop now. And everything, I think I looked at my calendar, because I work a lot with Joe, and he's a super awesome guy. And like normally we try and do it so like one of us will shoot and the other will shoot video. And I looked on our shared calendar, and we were supposed to be in Iceland next week, and I was like, that's not officially been cancelled, but I can't see it going ahead.
Yeah, and then everything just sort of getting cancelled from there.
Yeah, but you almost like, I think at first it was a bit of shock, and then you sort of expected it, and you realise this was a bigger thing. And
we'll get through it. You're just making your niche and your name for yourself in the industry, and then I suppose I take it you work on a freelance basis and suddenly booking after bookings disappearing from the calendar? That must be pretty worrying.
Yeah, it's not the best feeling in the world, but luckily I was not preparing for it, but I still had enough behind me to keep me going for the meantime.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's I'm very thankful it's starting to pick up again. I'll put it like that.
Yeah, good to hear. And talk us through, what are your favourite races that you've covered? Where is it, the cyclocross in Belgium? Is it the atmosphere there? Where are your favourite places to go and shoot?
Yeah, I think the cyclocross is definitely, it just has to be my favourite. Like photo wise, it's probably one of the easier to capture as well, because they're coming past every 7 minutes. You don't have to necessarily wait on the side of a road.
That's a good point, actually. And how does it work with the road racing? Do you sort of look at the day and decide that you're going to try and get to a couple of points or a couple of spots, or how does that work?
Yeah, it normally depends on what the team want. So when I was working with Vitus, it'd be very much if there was space for me in the car, I could go with Chez and get some stuff in the car. But it was normally I'd travel with a Swanee down to a feed station and then see where I can get to from there. Or if there was like a big stage up ahead, when I had my car, I could drive ahead and try and get to a key point, hopefully in time, then try and make it back.
So you're constantly trying to climb up trees or looking at vantage points or trying to get
massively. Like Google Street View is the best thing. You just spend half the time the night before, like basically driving the route on Street View trying to find something.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a lot that goes into it, right? It's not, you're not just sort of,
and then you find a place that you think is going to be amazing. You drive there in the morning, there's 4 other photographers, and you're like, we all thought the same thing, didn't we? Everyone has a bit of a laugh, and it's all good.
Does it get competitive? Like, who could get the best spot?
I've never had any issues with it. I'm sure when people are photographing the Tour de France and someone's trekked up a mountain for like 2 hours to get advantage of a road, and then someone stands next to them, I'm pretty sure they'd be probably quite annoyed. But no, I'm fortunate that everyone I've met has just been really, really welcoming. And it was sort of like the fears I had at the start of it being quite competitive. Everyone's super sound and we'll have a beer after. Like everyone's really relaxed and everyone just does their own thing at the end of it. Everyone's working for someone different. No one's really stepping on anyone's toes. So
most people are working for a publication or for when you go to the races, or you get the freelance photographers as well. Is that right? Or
yeah, I think so. I'm still learning about a lot of that, but I think a lot of the times people will either be there for a purpose. You'll get some people who then are like working for the big agencies like SW Picks, and then they'll syndicate it to like the magazines and the newspapers. But I think a lot of the time people go there already with a purpose to shoot something for someone.
Okay.
I'm still learning about all of that, which is quite nice.
Trade. Yeah, and obviously you were hoping to get onto the World Tour this year before things were slowed down. Hopefully that picks up for you when racing kicks off again. But obviously the Tour, is that on the to-do list? That's something you've wanted to go cover? And
yeah, I think I'd like to do one of the big tours. I'm currently talking to WND because just before lockdown, I was lucky enough to work with them at the Berlin World Champs on the track.
Oh, wicked!
And so that was like fun 5 days. It just I've never
Velodrome
really.
shooting looks you can get some great images in the Velodrome, right?
Yeah. So I was actually making videos for them every day, but they were all really, really like nice and said like if we're not like doing anything, by all means just take photos in the track.
Yeah. And
so I get to watch like Filippo Ganna just set record after record after record, and same with the Danish like pursuit team, and it was amazing because I got to see both sides of it, and I've never really done too much on the track before, so it was a complete eye opener to how you can work differently. But yeah, I was back to that point. I was hoping to go and do the Giro Rosa with them, but like going back to the competitiveness, I've got a nice group of mates that if they can't do anything, like Sean Hardy was initially supposed to do that, but he can't do it because of other reasons, and I think he's shooting somewhere else, so he'll just pass it along, and then you always know that someone you trust is going to be able to fulfill it.
Yeah, and likewise, I'm sure you do it in return the other way around as well, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it's strange, I think, with the growth of iPhones and camera phones as a whole, photography sort of becomes synonymous with cycling as much as coffee has in many different ways. What advice can you give people who want to capture their rides or what can you say to people in terms of how they can get the best images and capture the experiences that they're having? Have you got any tips or words of wisdom?
Yeah. Like I've always, like, I think like everyone pretty much, I've always got my phone on me on a ride. And if you ever see anything, there's no reason not to stop. Like, I know it might mess up your average speed or your average power, but I mean, there's more times than not that I've just stopped on the side of a road, taken a picture of something I've just seen, and I'm so much happier for stopping. Don't know if that's just me being a cafe rider or what, but no, the iPhones especially are amazing. If you just if you go on it and then you just tap on the sensor, you can bring up or down the exposure as well. And so that's something that helps a lot for me. Yeah, so if you've got your phone in front of you, you just tap in the center of the screen, and it will bring up a little box with a sun next to it. If you just go up or down with your finger, that will just change how bright or dark it is.
Yeah, I've never seen that before.
So little things like that just try and help not blow out the highlights mainly.
Yeah. And do you with your iPhone photos, do you edit them post taking them?
Yeah. So I'm like a big fan of editing my work and just trying to get it across to what I like. So I've been using a VSCO for quite a few years now. That just sort of gives me everything I really want to achieve from it. And I mean, if I'm in the nicest place in the world and I can take a picture on my phone because I don't necessarily have my camera, it's still going to be a nice picture. It doesn't necessarily matter if it's on your phone or your camera. Like, if it's a nice picture, it's a nice picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you ever use photos from your iPhone as work, or not really? Not really.
No, not too often. I think I've probably done it in the past, but a lot of the time it's try and keep my phone away from me. Otherwise, I'll just like be chatting to friends or something. So on shoots, that normally stays in my pocket firmly. But that's the nice thing about social media. Like, especially in lockdown, I've been catching up with so many people that I haven't spoken to in months because everyone's been so busy.
Yeah, had a chance to reconnect with everyone. Yeah. Have you been doing much riding?
Yeah, so I got back from Mallorca with Panama and Joe and sort of said to myself, okay, I haven't really been on the bike too much this year, and just sort of forced myself into it and forced myself on Zwift again. So that was, it's definitely paid off. Like, I'm feeling a lot better for it, but after a while, like after a couple of hours on it, you are like, wow, this is getting a bit painful.
Yeah, not many photos to be taken on Zwift.
No.
Unnecessary.
Not many you want to share.
No, exactly. And I missed you earlier. Did you say that you're going to be covering the Giro Rosa this year?
Yeah, hopefully.
That's September, right?
Yeah, but I don't think they've put the route out yet.
And you'll be shooting that
for the WNT Ceratizit team.
Oh, wicked. Okay, cool.
So with Kirsten Wild and everyone.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. That'd be great. And it's not published yet, but I had Emma Pooley on Friday, and just saying how much we just love it. It's such exciting racing.
Yeah, for sure.
And hopefully, I think imagery is part of trying to increase the profile of it, really. I think that it's kind of an underrepresented, but obviously with talented people like yourself going and creating great images, hopefully that can raise the profile of the sport.
Yeah, and like, it always amazes me when you go and you just see how deep they're going, and like it makes such exciting racing when everyone's like properly digging into each other, and it's almost a bit, I want to say, less controlled. Like, some of the men's pro races that I've seen, it'll be the last hour or something will be where it all kicks off, but in women's racing, anyone can attack at any point, and it's just so exciting to watch.
Yeah, it's a bit more unpredictable. That's what I love about it.
Yeah, and you've got probably like top 20 riders who could all win.
Yeah.
You honestly don't know who's going to be on a good day and who's not.
Yeah. And so how do we catapult the profile of women's cycling? What are your views in terms of raising the profile and just getting it more appreciated in mass public?
Yeah, I think definitely getting it more on TV and in magazines is a big thing. Like, it's been long enough that we've seen all the men's races shown on Eurosport and everything. I think it's just, if it's both a fair level playing field, it'd be good to watch both. Like, I don't think anyone who's interested in cycling necessarily matters whether it's men's or women's racing. You just want to watch some good bike racing.
No, exactly that. And I think in terms of growing the sport, it's not necessarily just a case of copying what the men do for the women, because I think it's such an exciting sport in its own right. You could do something pretty cool with it from maybe we need to get your dad involved from a marketing perspective in terms of doing something different different, or
too busy building bike lanes in London now. That's what he does now.
really doing the bike lane stuff in London?
Yeah, so he works for Hammersmith and Fulham Council, designing the cycle superhighways through there. So a bit different, but still involved in bikes.
Excellent. Yeah, trying to think where they are in Hammersmith and City. I don't know. Barnes Bridge is shut now, but it's probably we're getting too local now for people listening.
For everyone to figure out where.
Yeah, exactly. But going back to the women's racing, that's definitely sort of my view on it. Is that hopefully people like yourself can help raise the profile of it, because I think it's tremendously exciting to watch.
Yeah, for sure. And like when suddenly you get companies like Velo putting in all the power data and everything, everyone just goes, actually, yeah, like the comparison isn't too much. They're still putting out like major numbers, and the racing's really exciting. Why shouldn't we be watching this?
Yeah, exactly. And maybe with lockdown, we're just seeing such an increase in participation numbers across the world. Hopefully, with people like yourselves going to cover the Giro Rosa, you can create heroes and people to aspire towards, and maybe that will grow the whole thing.
Yeah,
which is kind of cool. Obviously, you cover cross. Have you done any of the emerging gravel stuff as well, in terms of some of the races? And that seems pretty cool. I think that's probably a photographer's dream, isn't it? Some of the long
I think when you see these races just going across like pretty much the most barren parts of the world, and you get races like, is it the Atlas Mountain race?
Yeah.
And just seeing photos from that, and it's like, just blows my mind. Like, I haven't been able to go over yet and photograph something like that, but cool. It just takes your breath away, and it just shows you that there's places in this world that we could ride bikes in, and they just look incredible.
Yeah, there is something that goes hand in hand with travel and cycling, isn't there? I think I've often said that I think on a bike is the best way to see the world, because you kind of expose all your senses. You can do it in your own time. It's fast enough to see it a lot as well. And I think that's why it just goes so hand in hand, the sort of exploration and travel and speed, and it all fits
everything
very
just
nicely
sort of
together.
You go on some of these rides sometimes, and you're like, whether you go out early morning, the light's just coming up or something, it changes your mind. But when you're driving, you're almost going a bit too quickly. You can't really appreciate. I know you're like focusing on going ahead, but when you're on a bike, you can sort of turn your head to the side, and you can just see what's happening over the fields or something. Or if you're on a climb, you can look around a bit.
Yeah.
And there's some amazing memories that I've got of being able to ride my bikes in some of these places.
Go on then, tell us, where are your favourite places to ride your bike?
So this is the kind of odd thing. I've pretty much done all the big mountain passes in Europe in a car and photographed them, but I've never actually ridden one.
Really?
I think oddly I really enjoyed Belgium when we went. So we stayed just outside of Antwerp, I think it was. Just outside of Bruges for a week with one of the cross races with Gabby and Jeremy. And we were just riding around, just enjoying it, like the three of us, and we were just joking about, and it was just, when you're just riding with friends, it feels so much better. And like, probably another one, it wasn't even a big ride. We're in Iowa for the World Cup, and we rode from our host house Nate's over to where they were tailgating, and we ended up tailgating a college football party, just the three of us. And then I think later on, like, Wild Van Aert came down for a bit, and just to properly experience what it was like, and it was just kind of fun.
Yeah, that's very cool. What do you travel with your bike? You don't get to take it with you most places, I suppose.
No, most of the time I don't, which is a bit of a
you do that
thing.
Yeah,
No,
exactly. Yeah, that's incredibly frustrating. What have you got at home then? What are you riding at the moment?
I've got a lovely Cannondale Super 6 Evo Disc Di2 that the guys at Neon Velo sorted me out with, so that's my current whip of choice.
Yeah, that's the
I think going back to the previous point, I think one place I'd love to ride again so going way back, like one of the first people I ended up photographing was a lady called Rachel Botterill, who was just riding the North Coast 500, and this sort of all fitted in. I probably forgot to mention it earlier, but this all sort of fitted in with the time that I was like figuring out I wanted to photograph cycling. So we were just up on a family holiday up in Scotland, and my dad was like, okay, there's this really pretty road, like if you want to get involved in photographing like some of the landscapes or something, it could be cool. We went over be like in a bar, and it was like you couldn't see a meter in front of you. It was that foggy. Went over the top and into Applecross, and then carried on, and just literally bumped into the first cyclist we saw, and it was Rachel, and got ahead of her. And I started taking a few pictures, and we stopped into a lay-by, and she stopped and was just asking about like basically what we were doing. And I said, oh, I'm just a university student, just like photographing some of the landscapes and stuff. And it turns out she worked for a company called Loze, who are the solicitors for British cycling. And yeah, in an odd turn of events, then they got in contact with me, asking if I had any of the pictures for it, because they wanted to promote that Rachel was doing this really cool ride. And I just got chatting to them and ended up photographing their corporate ride for them. Yeah, it must have been late 2017. And they helped me out. They were the first people to ever properly book me, and I got to meet all of them and like do a lot of the events. Like they're at Eroica and stuff that I went with, and it's been what was it? There was a big event in London that they did for quite a few days, and I was with them, and they're all like such amazing people, and I've got to ride with quite a few of them now, and yeah, they're just chat away for days about them. Like they really helped me out at the start, and like, even when I didn't know what to charge and stuff, they sort of said, well, this is what we'd normally pay someone. Like, we think you'd be worth this. And just, it helped at the start. Like, I was probably 19 and didn't know anything. I thought, this can't be a job, but they're all amazing.
And now it is.
Yeah, and just in a weird turn of events, that's how everything fell apart. Not apart, fell together. Fell together. No, you might have to cut that bit. But
I would definitely keep that bit in. It's funny how these things happen, though, right? It's obviously you clearly, particularly with your sort of family background, it's kind of you've sort of worked your way into the path. That a lot of passion there from your side as well. But a lot of these sliding doors moments help you get to where you get to, right?
Yeah, it's funny when you can look back at it and you see how everything did sort of fall together at the right point, and being at the right place at the right time, and putting myself at the right place at the right time, hopefully.
Yeah. Now here's a question for you. I've always wondered, do you have a favourite image? One photo that you love? I mean, how many photos have you taken in your life? Hundreds of thousands, probably, right?
Probably something like that.
Yeah. Can you narrow it down to one or two? Put you on the spot now.
No, I think there's probably one. It was my website homepage picture for a good while, and it was this photo of the Stelvio Pass. And I shot it quite a few years ago now, but I think that's always going to be special to me, because me and my mum went down to Italy for work, and we went as well, and then we went to see my godmother, who lives just outside Milan, and we said, okay, well, why don't we, like, mum can stay there for a couple of days, and then we'll drive up to do the Stelvio. So we stayed up in Bormio, just the two of us, and then went out early morning to photograph the Stelvio, because we thought it'd be something cool just for the house. And we once again couldn't see a thing up the whole way of the climb until we got right near the top, and the fog just cleared, and suddenly we were on top of the fog. There was a cloud inversion. It was just the most beautiful thing. And I think it's just because I was with my dad at the time, and it was like no one else was there. It just felt like we had the whole place to ourselves, and yeah, that was probably my favourite, I think.
Yeah, amazing. Isn't it weird how like a photograph can capture far more than just the image it portrays? You mentioned that obviously being with your dad there, like it captures the whole experience, doesn't it? Beyond just what you can see.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like there's going to be so many memories attached to pretty much every like shoot I go on now. It's like lockdown's been amazing, because it's allowed me to go back through my archives and see what I've shot.
Do you often go through your stuff? Do you get a chance to go through it? And
if I get a chance to.
Do you store everything, and how do you? This is a lesson you can teach all us amateur photographers who just probably, or maybe it's just I'm really disorganized. But where do you store everything? How do you file everything?
Yeah, I back everything up. That's one thing I've learned. The hard way. But everything's backed up on hard drives, and luckily I was able to get that hard drive to work again. But it suddenly made me think for half a day that I probably should back everything up a bit more. Yeah, just try and organise stuff by shoots. I normally do. I've got a pretty good memory where I remember where I put stuff. So everything might seem like an organised mess, but to me, I know exactly where everything is, which probably isn't the best way of doing it. But hey, if
that sounds like your own kind of.
I've got my own filing system, and it's hidden for everyone else.
Yeah.
But no, it's been nice. I've been able to
share that Stelvio photo with us so we can people can find that.
Yeah,
and
I'll
do you
send
have
it
a
over to
favourite race photo as well? Like someone racing? Is there a favourite photo you captured the pain? sport?
I think probably one of them. There's probably two that stick out in my mind.
Yeah.
One of them was after, I want to say I can't think what race it was. One of the cross races in Belgium that I did with Jeremy, and he finished and just came back, and he was just covered in mud, and we're in this car park, and he's just got mud on his face. It's just looking dead at the camera. And then one that contrasts it.
Nothing in his eyes, just the eyes are empty, right?
He's so done and just doesn't want anything to do except for him to eat some food. Is that empty? And then oddly, a similar picture to it is at the end of the Ras in Ireland. I think the second to last day when I did it, I was with Neil and Velo and Mike come in. He was like, he had a stomach bug the whole week, but somehow managed to get through it. And there was one day that it rained, and it just rained so heavily, and everyone was soaked. And he's just looking at the camera again. And it's just like, you can just tell he's broken inside. He's had enough of it. But do
you think the images with people, obviously the picture of the Stelvio, the sort of vistas, I think, capture everyone's imagination. But do you think the images you catch of athletes, of course, they are supremely talented on a whole different stratosphere to us mere mortals. But do you think it's that relatability of pain that you can, if you ride a bike and you train and you race hard, you know how painful it can be? Is that people like seeing that pain in other people? Do you think that's what it is?
I think so. And when you see these pictures with these people and you see someone attacking, for example, you can suddenly almost like, it can be a little bit of motivation for you. Like if you have it on your wall or something to see, okay, actually, I'll go do that, and I'll go. Like, I think everyone at some point has thought they're Matthew van der Poel coming into the end of Amstel Gold Race, like when you're on the turbo and you need the last 10 minutes of everything out of you, and you just remember that race, right? And it's like, I think if you can just enjoy the racing side of it, you can appreciate how much goes into it and how much preparation. And when you see these people with all these pain faces on mountains, it's going to be no different whether you're a pro or not, and you're struggling up this mountain. Like, I think there's almost some relatability to it, that whether you go up as fast as you can or as slow as you can,
it doesn't matter, right? I mean, there aren't many other sports. Try and think, like, you can't, it's not like you can go play football at Wembley every day, but with cycling you can't. Golf maybe, but getting on some of the courses are expensive and difficult. But cycling, you could literally, if you've got a bike, you can go and ride.
Yeah, you can do anything you want.
Yeah, exactly. And I think then with Strava, you can then go see the segments and you can see how you stack up against, some of the big names and stuff. So it must be the only sport in the world where there is that relatability. They just go a lot quicker.
And you also got the chance of being on one of these mountains and your favourite pro riding past you and saying morning.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
There's probably not many sports that people will, or at least maybe before COVID-19, but they'd probably come and take a picture and shake your hands and say, hi, how are you doing?
Yeah. It's still quite approachable, right?
Yeah, like everyone I've ever met in the sport has been really approachable and just really down to earth. And I think that's the nice thing. Like whether you're out on the road with someone or in a cafe, like people always say hello and people always be friendly about it.
Yeah, that's cool.
The sport's pretty amazing.
So other than the work side of things, of course, you're looking forward to racing, getting going again. But as a cycling fan of the sport, what are you looking forward to seeing this year? Because it's going to be quite unprecedented, the fact that racing's kicking off again, what would normally be the end of the season. So what are the key races you're looking forward to seeing?
If it still goes ahead, I'm really looking forward to watching Strada Bianchi.
Yeah. Well, that's got to be a race you want to photograph, right? That's just
one day.
Beautiful race. Yeah.
And I think just with everyone, how everyone's just been training, people are going to go into it absolutely flying.
Yeah.
And I think especially that it's just such a long race and it's just going to be so hard. That's probably one that I'm enjoying watching. I mean, you've obviously got the Tour, the Giro, the Vuelta, where once again everyone's going to be flying and you're probably going to get maybe different people riding to necessarily that they would normally because of how close they're going to be.
I think it's going to be fascinating to watch. And did you photograph the Col de la Loze with Cyclist Magazine?
Yeah, with Aid from Outcycles. Wow.
With our great man Aid Hill. It looks insane.
It's a bit steep, I'll put it like that. There's not many climbs where you go down it and you look up and you think, okay, that is a wall. And like we went up the prettier side, we'll call it, and then got to the top, and then we saw the descent, but they're going up that descent, and Aid was saying
the Meribel side, isn't it?
Yeah, and he was saying it's genuinely horrible. Like, so I can't imagine what it's going to be like if everyone starts kicking each other in the teeth just before trying to get up that.
It's going to be incredible. For those of you listening that don't know, it's a new climb in the Tour. We will put a link in the show notes that Aid Hill from Outcycles wrote a report of it. It's a huge climb. It goes up from Meribel or up from Courchevel. It's a paved road, but only for cyclists and cross-country skiing, I think I'm right in saying, or for skiing.
Yeah, I think so. And hiking, but there's no cars allowed up there. There's like a point that there's just a barrier, and then there's no cars allowed up past that.
Yeah, and it looks absolutely spectacular. It's debuting in the Tour this year. We were actually hoping to be out there to watch them go up it, but sadly COVID's put a halt to that. But I'm very keen to go check it out.
But I'm sure Aid's going to be at the top of it watching.
He'll be there, I'm sure.
Yeah. I've seen on Instagram he keeps on riding up it, so I think he's going to try and go for the KOM or something.
Well, he keeps saying how tough a climb it is and how much he hates it, but you're right. I keep seeing him
he
going
just
up
keeps
there.
On going up it.
I know, but that's one to look out for. Very good. Now, look, what have I missed anything out? Is there anything that I've failed to bring up, or anything you want to add?
Or? I think I'm pretty happy. I think you managed to get everything out of me. I always forget stuff. That's the thing. Like getting to the end of it and almost forgetting Lee Day, who helped me out from the start. That's probably a big whoops.
Well, I think we covered quite a lot. We've got something for everyone there. But please do stay in touch, won't you? Wish you all the best for when racing.
Likewise.
Again. I'm glad bookings are going, but stay in touch. If we can get all the things we discussed in in today's chat in the show notes as well, that'd be great. I'm very keen to see that Stelvio photo actually.
I'll fire it all over now, and hopefully once we're allowed to move around a bit more and Crystal Palace crits come back, it'd be cool to go down to Four Boroughs and have a coffee with you. Yes,
definitely. Well, I'm desperate to get down to Four Boroughs and see Ed and the crew and have a coffee down there. It'd be good. Yeah.
Ben was helping on that shoot. He was driving me about, and we just got chatting, and it turns out, we knew quite a lot of similar people. And then he said about how he was part owner of Four Boroughs, and I was like, I see everyone go there, like Neil Phillips and Alec Briggs. It's like everyone's always there. He was like, I'm part owner. I was like, that's pretty cool. So I still haven't been able to go down and go to it, but it's on the list.
Well, we'll do that then. We'll do that. We'll get that. We'll put a date in, and I'll cycle over there and we'll meet for a coffee.
For sure. All right.
Brilliant. Alex, thanks so much for taking the time. Really good to chat, and we'll speak soon.
I'll speak to you soon. Bye, mate.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to the podcast. And more importantly, don't forget to download the Unfound app and join cyclists from around the world on the hub. We'll see you on there.